very, very deep charge unit which will run all day. You can turn it off and leave it for hours. I mean hours. And you can come back, no power on it, and you turn the ignition on, hit the key, instantly that the vacuum goes onto that unit. It is a charge unit. It runs. It starts. You leave it overnight, and somewhere in about 3 o'clock in the morning, the unit seems to go dead by itself. You can run it up to 12 o'clock at night, and the vehicle will still start. Go out at 12 o'clock. Don't run it all afternoon. Go out at 12 o'clock at night. Hit the key. Causes a vacuum straight onto the unit. No power connected to it. It'll start. I don't know what. It'll start. But you leave it till the morning. There must be I don't know, something in the air, or the cooling, or the actual magnetism in the earth, or something like that. Flattens it. You understand? We have done some experiments by hooking up a 1.5 battery, DC battery. The strange thing about it is, if you have a large battery and you have it to your unit all the time, it uses a heap of current, produces gas, and you don't need all that gas. It produces, as you see on your film and everything else, that the gas, or the bottles you don't need, that gas is not needed. You have gas there which will run it when you disconnect all.
You don't need extra gas, basically.
No. So if you have a big battery, it will use it, and if you leave a big battery connected to the unit and turn your motor off with the current going in, it will only take 10 minutes or more, and your battery out here will be dead. But you hook up a little 1.5 volt battery, and you can leave it on there for as long as you like, and it does not affect it doesn't flatten it. It doesn't use anything. It holds the potential over the unit. That 1.5 volt battery does not produce any gas while it is connected to the unit.
Not enough current.
But it holds potential on it. We've been driving in the Rover, driving along, holding at say 60 miles an hour on the accelerator and the motor and the car and everything on the unit. No power connected to the unit, and we have connected this 1.5 volt battery across positive to negative, and the car just took off like you dropped it back a gear without doing nothing. And it does not drain that 1.5 volt battery. You can leave that battery on there day after day after day and not run the vehicle in. It won't flatten it. Put your big battery on and flatten it in a few minutes. This stuff works very strangely.
You're saying that the 1.5 volt was working really well, and that as soon as you put the 12 volt on, it was dropping the 12 volt out?
Differences in current. I mean, on a 1.5 volt, you've got no current. On the 12 volt, you've got plenty of current.
Yeah, but while you've got vacuum pulling on your motor, while the car is going and you hook up that 1.5 volt battery, you get an increase. Your car takes off like you drop back again.
So the electric...
But it's not taking...
The voltage seems to be there rather than the current then. Because there's no current in the 1.5 volt anyway.
Well, it can't be voltage either. No. I don't know what it is. It is something. In your manifold, the Rover was pulling about 22 to 24 vacuum, inches vacuum, and you can drop right down. I've had the Rover down to about 2 pound manifold vacuum, and the car was idling smooth as glass. You put on petrol and you drop down under say 12. Your motor don't go anymore. She stopped. But I've had them running on 2 pound manifold vacuum, not with the acceleration open, with the motor just stalled right down to that, and the car is still going smooth as glass. Now that's physically, by mechanics ideas, impossible, but it happens. While you're idling, the polythene unit was level. When you increased acceleration, normally, logically, the unit, by a heavier vacuum pulling on it, should have sucked the unit in. This didn't occur. The unit expanded. Tremendous. It's expanded tremendous. That's on tape too. And by doing that, what was happening was the unit was producing more gas than what was needed. And it seemed to be pulling off under atmospheric pressure. A unit puts out a certain amount of pressure, which you can regulate, and You know, you can check and everything. Now, if you have vacuum, you pull off a certain amount of gas. But between vacuum and atmospheric pressure, there's a difference. In the unit, it seems that the motor wants to pull off under vacuum, but it doesn't seem to use any of that other gas, what comes off under atmospheric pressure. So when you cause a vacuum on there, you think you can't even out by pulling atmospheric plus vacuum. Why the polythene units expand is because what it'll get off under pressure, atmospheric pressure, doesn't use any of it for some reason, and that expands the unit, and that's why it's so dangerous, because there is so much pressure you can get off those units. And it's more than just what you can regulate off atmospheric pressure, because when you put a vacuum on, you remove the 57-pound pressure, atmospheric pressure. And there is a great big assistance of that gas for coming off after that, without vacuum. So we've got our gauges set here now at naught, but we have our gauges here for our pressure here now is set at naught. But we have the 57-pound in these things. Whatever the pressure is on us now is removed under vacuum. The vacuum can pull off what it needs. The unit can produce gas of its own accord without any current input. If you put in current input, and you put, which causes a heap of gas, and you put vacuum, which you've seen on the tape, it produces its own gas under vacuum when the unit is charged. It's only using what it vacuums. There is a mile of gas you can see on tape there in the unit being produced under your battery, under charge, or under your normal pressure. When that pressure is removed, there is a super release, and that expands the unit out tremendously. You become very, as it's on tape before, you become very inefficient. When you back off from the accelerator, that expansion of the polythene unit then transfers into your motor. If you want to slow down, what happens is you can't. Because you back off in the accelerator, that stops the vacuum on the unit. That stops that pressure sucking. Your car doesn't slow down like it normally does on petrol. That pressure expansion transfers into the manifold and your car just keeps going, and you go for the brakes. There's no manifold vacuum brakes. They're gone. With a solid unit, you don't get any extra expansion of gas at all. And when you back off in the accelerator, your car does a nosedive. She just slows down like you rip the brakes on, without touching the brakes. When you power on, it is there, you've got what you want. You can have it with the current or without the current. It makes no difference. It's very strange. Solid unit is the way to go. But if you've got any flexible hose or any flexible unit, whether it's thin stainless and anything.
Any flexible hose, you do have about how much?
Well, on the tube, from the manifold, I was running a tube. I don't care what type of tube you use. It can be any metal. It can be copper. It can be stainless. It can be brass. I don't care. It doesn't matter, because there's no pollution from your motor backwards, because your motor is negative, but your unit is positive. And if you join a metal hose from your manifold or carbide to the unit.
It's got to be that way. You can't have a negative exterior to the unit. So you can have this.
Yeah, but see, what other people have with my ideas, me explaining them to them, what they've done on their own is run metal, thinking that it's the wrong way to go, hook metal tubes up from the unit, which were positive all the way down nearly to the motor, and then put in a tube. It didn't work, because apparently the gas and everything else what is coming off, it's splitting from negative towards positive. They say it is a positively charged, what do you call it?
Fuel cell.
Whatever is coming off is supposedly, so other people have said, without mentioning it is positively charged. Now, if it is that way, and it's trying to then get to a negative, it's been split from a negative out. It does not go to a positive, because off your positive walls, gas comes off in. Off your negative, gas goes out. It is not a magnetic attraction from negative towards positive. You can see on film there, it comes off and goes off, goes away. If you bring them in too close, they fight each other. They cause a barrier where both of them just can't get off. So it's not this one pulling that one to there, or this one pulling that one to there. They are separated, they want to get off. If they are a positively charged particle, they are looking for a negative to flow down. If you run a positive tube all the way from your unit down towards your motor and put in a small bit, right up there is neutral. There's no water, there's no current, there's nothing on that. The current stays in the water. Between your negative and your positive, it stays in the water because negative is not connected to the positive. So that thing there is a positive. And apparently what happens is a gas seems to attract straight to the wall, it's gone. But if you have a negative from your motor back to very close to the unit, that is a negative. And if it is a positive, I don't know any of these things, it's all experimental. If that is, this is the way I've had it working. If it's a negative tube, the positively charged things seem to see it up that line. And they jump towards it, they don't blend into it. They just get a grease lightning slip straight through down into the motor without any restriction. On that copper tube I was showing you, which was polluted badly, one side of the copper tube was connected to the unit where the water was and everything else, and that turned out polluted, dark green, crystallised gas. That far further up the tube was clear and clean because it was not down near where the positive charge stuff is. So your copper, if you say it pollutes, it only pollutes on the positive side.
But it has to be a solid piece, right?
Solid. If it can expand or contract, when you put the vacuum onto the motor, it will suck in because it's not producing any gas. But if your unit, like a polythene one or anything else I've showed you there, if you have a unit which the plates in it aren't strong enough to put off the gas you need, you should have that little bottle put on this now to sort of show. The bottle, because it only had very thin wires, would run the car and would stay expanded, or it'd stay to its size while you're idling. When you accelerated, the very soft wall plastic cordial bottle went in because those plates could not put off the gas to compensate. But when your plates are big enough and strong enough to put off all the gas you want, then it doesn't suck in. It expands and becomes very dangerous. The sucking in would be great. Your motor wouldn't run because you run out of gas, it's not sufficient. But when you've got too much, then you'll never ever hit, with that you'll never hit the right plates under an expandable unit to compensate for each running of the motor. You would hit, you'd hook it up and be either idle or halfway or full revs or whatever. You would never be able to strike it and keep anything to be able to accelerate and de-accelerate. That's where the stainless one does everything. Solid stainless does everything. If you have soft stainless, forget it too. We've already had that. You've seen the unit that would sell take there. Very thin stainless expands. And that's worse. More dangerous. Because it is solider. And if it lets go, it's gone. She just rips you apart. You've seen balloons go off. We've got them in a very flexible rubber container. The gas is sealed in there. But when it gets out, it just doesn't, there's a great big ripping. You have your hands close to it, take your hand off your hands. It's not the gas, it's not a flame inside it, it's the inrushing. It causes it. Straight in. You get your balloon back, it tears it. So if this gas goes off, and it's pressurised there, it's trying to get out, but as soon as it can get out and it meets a bit of air, bang! Polythene units I've seen expand out. You can't. I don't know how much pressure you reckon you can push by a thumb on one of those lids of that polythene stuff, but I reckon you could push 40, 50 pounds. Even if you stood on it, you wouldn't bend it out. Now, hooked up to vacuum of the motor, those lids, I've had them expanding out an inch to an inch and a half. There's no way in the world you can get that amount of pressure. You take that unit, seal it off down to a gas station, and you put the air hose on there, and you can build up 100-pound pressure. And I bet you that lid won't bend out the way it was underneath. Imagine that gas getting out. If it just split and got out, it would take everything gone, mate. No worries. So don't use it.
Mm.